Hi there, I'm Savannah Mexta with Manor Law Group, and I'm excited to welcome you to another Webinar Wednesday with esteemed elder law and estate planning attorney Robert Mannor. On this special holiday edition of Webinar Wednesday, Bob will be talking about the one thing that's likely on most of our minds this time of year, gifts. Only the gift Bob will be talking about today means so much more for your loved ones than anything you could wrap and place under a tree. This gift is your legacy. It's a plan for the future. Now, before I pass the mic, I would like to cover a few housekeeping details. Even though Bob is an attorney, today's webinar will not give specific legal advice. If you have a question during today's presentation that is about your unique situation, I encourage you to contact us after the webinar. Also, if during the presentation you do have a general question, I encourage you to use the question box that we have here in the chat. We will save time after the presentation to review those questions. And today's presentation will be recorded. So if for some reason you have to step away, or while you're watching it, you're thinking, wow, I really wish my friend could see this, or my cousin could see this video, good news, they can. Tomorrow I'll be sending out the replay so you can share that with family and friends. Now, why should you listen to what the folks at Manor Law Group have to say? First, note that we're a nationally recognized and respected elder law and estate planning firm. Also, all three of our attorneys are accredited by the Veterans Administration to assist veterans with claims and appeals. Attorney Bob Mannor is nationally board certified as an elder law attorney by the National Elder Law Foundation. He's one of only 19 attorneys in Michigan to achieve this designation. Bob is also a leader among elder law attorneys in Michigan. He's currently chair-elect of the State Bar of Michigan Elder Law and Disability Rights Section and past president of the National Academy of Elder Law Attorneys, Michigan chapter. Also, Manor Law Group has been honored by readers of our local paper as the best or favorite law firm for the last 8 years in a row. Now, without further ado, I would like to welcome attorney Bob Mannor.
Hi, folks, and happy holidays. I know this year is a little different than most, and that maybe we're not having as many Christmas parties and other parties, but it is a time to be thinking about others and to be, thinking about gifts. And so we thought that this would be a nice little end of the year webinar Wednesday. I'm sure we'll have one next year or next week also, but I was just thinking about this from a few different perspectives, and thinking about estate planning as a gift to the extent that most people aren't really considering it that way. In other words, they're thinking, oh, I just got to get my ducks in a row, I got to get my affairs in order. But when you really think about what you're accomplishing and what you're doing, it's probably one of the best gifts that you could give your children to make sure that you have your affairs in order so that their lives will not be in upheaval from legal and tax and family fights and all these other things that could happen if you don't have your plan well determined. I will hear often from families that will say, oh, well, mom always told us that she had everything all set, or mom and dad said they had everything all set, and now when crisis strikes, when there's a death, when there's an illness, when there's some form of memory loss or dementia, the family is scrambling. And they thought, well, that doesn't seem right. They went to an attorney, the attorney did a plan. And so one of the things that we talk about a lot is how a lot of legal plans are just documents. They're not really a plan. And having a comprehensive plan to say, well, here's what's going to happen if I start experiencing dementia. Here's what's going to happen if, God forbid, I ever had to go to a nursing home, even for a few weeks. Here's what's going to happen if I'm not able to pay my own bills. Here's what's going to make life easier when I die. And there's so many things that is really a gift to kids. We deal with folks that thought they had planned well and didn't all the time. It's one of the most common things is that we have the kids come in, and boy, I know they may not think about it when you're getting the plan together, when you're meeting with the Manor Law Group, or meeting with your attorney to get your affairs organized and get your estate plan together. But reality is, it's probably one of the best things that you could do for your children. So let's talk about it from a couple different levels. The first thing, of course, is to talk about it from the standpoint of what happens after your death. So many people focus so much on that, and that's actually not as important, in my view, as what happens before you die. And so we're going to talk about that and what happens after you die, even when it comes to, scheduling things for making the kids' lives easier. But so many people are just very, very focused on, I went to my attorney because I want to avoid probate. Well, that's great. That's a great incentive, but there's so much more to it to make your kids' lives easier, and so much more to avoiding probate than just having a form document. Okay. And so when you really think about it, certainly that's part of it, to say, well, I want my kids' lives to be easier. I don't want them to have to go into court. I don't want them to have to pay the expenses. I don't want them to have all of the attorney expenses and other expenses of the estate of going through probate and having the house go through probate and things like that. So that is a huge gift to your kids, to say, well, I want this to be easier when I die. We're all going to die. Eventually, we're all going to die. It's a fact of life. And the idea is, most parents, that's when they go to a lawyer, when they start putting their estate plan together, that's really what they're thinking about. But I'm encouraging you to think about it as a gift to your children in a couple of other ways. Certainly, it's to make their lives easier when you pass away. But just as important, and I'm going to tell you from personal experience, even more important, is going to be to make their life easier for the last stage of your life. A lot of us don't plan for this. A lot of us don't plan for that period of time before we die, where the kids' lives can be, they're going to often have to step up. Some of us will live to the last day of our life and be in complete control and never need any help, or never need, any assistance in making sure our bills get paid, or helping balance the checkbook, or just making sure everything's taken care of, or making decisions for ourselves. That's true. That's for some of us. But actually, it's becoming a small minority of people will have that. Most of us will have some period of time before we die, whether it's a day or a week or a month or 6 months or 6 years, that we're going to be dependent on our kids for making decisions, for helping us with getting our bills paid, for helping making decisions about our care even. We don't like to think about that, but the reality is that's a fact. That is for most of us. It's not true for everybody, but it's true for most of us. And so we can put blinders on and say, well, that's not going to happen to me, and that's not going to happen to my spouse. But we know statistically it happens to most of us. So can we really guarantee that we're going to be able to make all of our own decisions until the last breath of our life? And I'm going to tell you, for most of us, that's very, very unlikely, even if it's for a day. Well, I'll tell you how many people call me in a panic. The kids call me in a panic because, well, we don't know that it's only a day. We don't know that it's only a week. We don't know that it's only a month, that mom or dad can't make their own decisions, or my spouse can't make their own decisions. And so they're in a panic because they don't know what to do. They haven't been brought in on the plan. They haven't been told what documents they would need, and who the attorney is, and how to get a hold of the attorney, and whether the attorney even has a plan for that, because most attorneys don't. Most attorneys are really planning for after your death versus what happens in that last stage of life. And what a gift that you can give your kids of having a plan, having answers, telling them what to do in the event of, mom or dad have a stroke, kids know what to do. Can you imagine? Most people, that would just be a crisis. And I get these crisis calls all the time, every single day that I'm at work. I'm probably dealing with several family members in a panic. Of course, it's always going to be terrible if that happens, but what if we could have a plan to say, okay, here's the documents you use, here's the person you call, here's how do we make sure that the bills can get paid? Because that's the biggest thing. How do we get the bills paid? How do we make medical decisions? Do I have to go to court? Am I going to need guardianship? All of these things. Well, that can all be predetermined, and so the kids know what to do, and they're in less of a panic. Of course, we don't want any of this to happen, but if it does happen, we've got a plan for that. What a gift that would be to your family. So then let's talk about it from the standpoint of whatever you leave behind, and the gift to the kids from the parents. So a lot of people have intentions. They say, well, I want my kids to inherit something. I'd like to leave them something. I'd like to make their lives a little bit easier. And what's interesting about that is, is there a way that we could leave them things that's not actually going to more complicate them lives. So what if one of your kids has a challenging marriage? Would we want to, is there a way that we could make sure that my daughter's going to get the inheritance I want to leave her, and then it's not going to get tied up in a divorce, or it's not all going to be spent by the husband who doesn't spend money wisely? Is there a way that I can leave it for my son who's had some financial issues and isn't maybe making the best decisions, or does make good decisions and just had bad cards dealt with them, dealt to them? They had a business, and boy, business these days, it's tough, right? So they had a business, and maybe it's a restaurant. Oh my goodness, the restaurant's not doing so well right now. Is there a way I could leave money to my son who owns the restaurant and make sure that it's not all going to get eaten up by his creditors, especially if that business fails? And the answer is absolutely. All of these plans are possible to make sure that you can leave assets that are not going to be eaten up by a divorce, and not going to be eaten up by a lawsuit, not going to be eaten up by nursing home expenses. What if you have a child that either them or their spouse might end up in a nursing home someday? They have some medical issues. Wouldn't it be great if we could protect that money and make sure that they could still qualify for benefits to pay for a nursing home without having to spend the inheritance first? All of that is very possible and very achievable through estate planning. And that, what a gift to the kids to be able to say, okay, I'm not going to control you from beyond the grave. I'm going to leave you a legacy. I'm going to leave you some, an inheritance, and I'm going to make sure that you have the ability to have that inheritance protected, because they can't do it from themselves. If once they get the money in their name, it's going to be subject to whatever problems they have. It's going to be subject to potential for divorce. It's going to be subject to lawsuits. It's going to be subject to nursing home costs. And if you set it up for them before you die, though, you can set it so that it's protected, that they have access to the money. They have the ability to spend it. They have the ability to buy things, to reinvest it, to buy a house with it, whatever it is, to take it as their retirement so that they take it over time. All of those things are possible, and have it protected from divorce and bankruptcy and lawsuits. What a gift that would be to your kids. Now, can they see that at this stage in life? Maybe they think of it as a gift. Would you wrap it up in a bow to say, hey, I did an estate plan, Merry Christmas? Maybe. I mean, honestly, it should be. I don't know if folks always look at it that way, but it is such a gift to be able to do that for your family. I want to talk about a couple other things. Spouses, the gift to each other. So one of the things that we're frequently doing is we have one spouse. This is so common. Very much, well, a lot of the planning that we do and a lot of the calls that we get is one spouse is very sick and the other spouse is the caregiver spouse. And in many situations, the caregiver spouse ends up going into debt to try to care for the spouse that's sick, whether it's Alzheimer's or Parkinson's or MS or whatever disease it is, dementia, stroke, any of those things, that the cost of the care, if they don't have a plan in place to protect to get the benefits that we need to pay for that care, we often see spouses becoming impoverished. Even people that had done really well, they had professional jobs and they made good money, they saved money, and they burned through all of that to pay for the care for one spouse. So one of the things that you can do with good estate planning is you can make sure that you've protected your spouse. If you're the one that gets sick, then you can make sure the assets are protected, so that would be you can qualify for care, you can qualify for good care that's going to be paid for through different government programs without having to spend through or burn through all of your money first. It's one of the biggest fears that people have. My spouse has Alzheimer's. Am I going to go broke because of this? And the answer is yes, unless you do something about it. But there's very clear plans, state plans, that we can put together that is going to protect your spouse or protect you if you're your spouse that's going to be sick. And so what a gift to each other to say, yeah, of course we want to take care of each other, but I don't want one of us to get impoverished because of the care needs of the other. So what a gift that would be to each other, just to say, you know what, this Christmas, instead of that extra bracelet that I was going to get you, maybe we should talk about making sure that we have a plan that's going to protect each other in case one of us gets sick, in case one of us has a stroke, has a car accident, whatever it is. So that's such an important one. And then this is something that I think is interesting, and we have parents that will tell us this all the time. They'll say, you know what, I'm so happy. I'm sleeping so much better. I'm really, happy that I got this plan in place, that we've got a plan in case I get sick. We got a plan in case my spouse gets sick. We've got a plan in case I die, in case we both die. We've got everything set up so that it's going to be easier for the family, and I feel so much better about it. Boy, I wish my kids would do this, right? So the first thing is just encouraging your kids to say, uh, you know, okay, I know you're younger than us. I know you're younger than us, but you've got kids, you've got mortgages, you've got, a house, you've got a job. Oh, it's time. It's time to get things in place. And so just encouraging them to come see a lawyer, come see us, come see, a lawyer that's very thorough and effective. Um, Sometimes, and I've had folks do this from time to time, where the parents say, you know what? This is so important to me, and I feel so much better for having a thorough plan in place. I'm just going to go ahead and pay for my kids' estate planning. Now, that gets a little bit where we have to be careful about that. It is certainly possible. You could give the gift of estate planning to your kids and pay for it. Now, what you have to understand, though, is you don't have any say in how they set up their estate plan. You don't get to be in the room. Just because you're paying for it doesn't mean you have any influence on it. And so what we lawyers talk about it, that we put in on blinders. I was saying earlier, you don't want to put on blinders about long-term care. Lawyers have to put on blinders when we represent the parents and then represent the kids, because when I'm working on the parents' case, I can only think about what's in the parent's best interest and what the parent wants to do. And when I'm working on the kids' case, I can only think about what's in the kids' best interest and what the kids want to do and what they want to accomplish. So even if you pay for it, you don't get into influence how they set it up, or who they have as what, or whether or not you get the kids or not if they die. That's not, you can't do that. I can't as a lawyer, there's all these ethical obligations I have, and I have to have you sign something and them sign something saying, yes, I understand that I'm paying for this, but I don't get to have any say in what the decisions are. And for the kids to also sign something to that effect saying, yes, I accept to have my parents pay for this, and I promise that I'm not doing anything other than what I would normally do, by the fact that they, if I were paying for it myself. So certainly possible. And I've had lots of parents give that fantastic gift to their kids. There's just some extra rules that we got to follow on that. We want to make sure we're doing everything ethically. We want to make sure we're doing everything that's going to be good for everybody. And that's a big part of this, is to make sure that there's not going to be fights later on. There's not going to be arguments later on. We're just going to make life easier for everybody. Okay. So then I'm going to wrap it up with some special considerations. So there's some family situations where it's just nobody wants to leave a mess behind, right? Nobody wants to cause significant grief and pain and debt for their family. Nobody wants that. And there's some special considerations that if you fall into one of these categories, it's just so important. It's almost, I can't say it's mandatory, but oh my goodness, you're leaving a mess behind if you don't have a thorough, detailed, clear plan if you have any of these considerations. So it would be such a gift to your family if these things are true, to make sure that you don't just have a fly-by-night plan, that you don't have a lawyer that hasn't really thought all these things through, that doesn't create a master plan for, no matter what happens, that doesn't just kind of put documents together. That's not, that's not a very good estate plan if we're just filling in the blank documents, right? So these are the special considerations that I think, boy, it would be a gift to your family if you solve these problems that could come up. And before I get into those special considerations, I do want to talk about this. So sometimes I have folks that worry about, oh, by doing an estate planning, I'm giving up control. No, you're not at all. So I talk about help versus ownership, okay? And one of the things that a lot of parents will say is, oh, I've got it all set because I've got my daughter's name on my accounts. Oh, that's one of the worst things that you could do. Putting your daughter's names on your accounts, that's one of the worst things that you can do. It's exposing you to any problem that she has in her life. If she gets divorced, if she gets in a lawsuit, if she gets in a car accident, if she gets sued, if she has medical issues, if her husband has medical issues, those are all now your financial problems if her name's on your account. absolutely a terrible idea. We don't want to, and by putting her name on your account, you're giving her ownership of your account. You'd be giving her ownership of your house if you put her on the house. We do not want her to have ownership. There's all kinds of problems. There's gifting rules that is going to cause both sides problems. And so giving ownership to the kids while you're still alive is just a disaster waiting to happen. Okay. So what we want is help, not ownership. We want them to have access. We want that if something goes wrong, we want our daughter to be able to access the account, to write a check out of the account. We don't need to put her name on the account in order for her to write a check out of the account. We absolutely, and even the bank will often tell you to do that. They'll say, oh, you don't need a lawyer. We're just putting your daughter's name on the account. That might be in the bank's best interest. It is not in your best interest. So the gift to her would be to say, let's set it up right. Let's actually have a plan so that if I get sick, if I have a stroke, if I die, you have immediate access to this account. Not ownership, but you have access. You can help. But also that you're not taking over. You're still in charge. Mom and dad are still in charge. The kids are only there as a backup as needed, right? So we set up a plan to make sure the kids can step in anytime they need to, but they're not going to take over unless mom and dad can't do it. So it's help versus ownership, okay? And that goes for financial and medical decisions, okay? So for financial, sometimes we just want help because it's convenient. We're on vacation. My son does a good job of balancing his checkbook. My daughter is thrifty and makes sure that we're spending properly. Whatever it is, you just want some help. Perfectly good on financial decisions. Sometimes it's out of necessity that we need them to step up because we're in the hospital, or we have memory issues, or we had a stroke, or whatever it is. Same thing does not apply to medical decisions. So for financial, sometimes we want both people in charge. We want mom and dad to be in charge, but we want maybe some help from the kids. Medical decisions, it's going to be an either or. You always make your own medical decisions. You can ask for advice, but ultimately it's your decision, unless you're incapable of saying what you want because of physical restrictions or because of the inability to understand what's going on. And that's only after 2 doctors have determined that you're not capable of understanding what's going on. Then you need somebody in place to be able to make medical decisions, and that's a very specific legal form that we need. Okay, so I just want to set that aside because some people worry by doing planning that they're going to give up control. And absolutely not. We want you in control. It's just we want the helpers when we need help, right? So we want to put that in place before we need help. So the special issues, the first one's going to be the blended family. What do I mean by blended family? Okay, well, it's a second marriage. It's a later in life marriage. He's got kids, she's got kids. Maybe we have joint kids. But the idea is not all the kids come from both mom and dad, right? From husband and wife. That some of the kids are from a previous relationship. And so in that situation, it is so important to have a plan in place, because what's going to happen most of the time is one spouse is going to die, leave everything to the other spouse, and now we've just disinherited the kids of the first spouse to die. And people do this all the time, and it's like rolling the dice to say, okay, whoever lives longest, their kids win. It's such a bad idea. So having a plan, minimizing conflict, having a joint plan for everything. Maybe we kept separate assets, maybe we've commingled our assets. Regardless, we need to have a plan in place so that we prevent conflict, prevent all the grief that can come up from losing valuable emotional things. Sometimes it's not even dollars. Sometimes it's pictures. Sometimes it's that clock that was in the living room when for the last 70 years, and whatever, but the idea is you can really kind of cut down on family conflict and just make things go the way you want it to do. It's just so much where we really have to think this through when we have a blended family, meaning his kids, her kids, our kids, all of the above. The next thing I want to talk about is young people. Okay, so we do a special plan. We can, for folks that are kids that are going off to college. So this is a little bit of a change of pace kind of a conversation as far as a gift, but this would be such a good gift when you've got, kids that are 18, 19, 20, and they're going off to college, because parents, can you still help? What if they get in a car accident? What if they're at the hospital? Will the hospital even tell you that they're there? Will the hospital give you any details about their medical information? The answer is not. They're not supposed to. If they do, that's not what the law says. The law says they're not. If they're over 18, The hospital's not even supposed to share information with you. If they're, if your child isn't able to say what they want, if something happened where they're unconscious or something like that. What if they get into a situation and you need to access their bank account? What if you need to make decisions with the post office about where to forward the mail? What if you need to deal with the school because something happened at the school? You can't do any of that unless they have granted you some legal permission. So power of attorney, healthcare documents, those types of things. Very simple. We have a package that we do for the off to school package, so to speak. And so we actually reduce the price for kids that are going off to school. The parents want to take care and make sure that they still have that planning. Now, do the kids want the parents involved in all of their stuff? Maybe. I mean, maybe not. They don't want them to have complete control, but a lot of times if you explain it, you say, yes, this is really a gift to you because if something happens to you, would you still want my help? Would you want me to know, what's going on at the hospital? Would you want me to be able to help with the school if there's any issue at the school? Very important. So kind of a little bit different thing than what we've been talking about, because now we're talking about young people. But again, when we're talking about gifts, that would be a significant gift to them. I think they'd probably want the Xbox instead of the powers of attorney, but from their, they'd get more value out of the powers of attorney than the Xbox. But I get why that might not be their favorite Christmas gift. Okay, what about children with special needs? And this is, I think, the last one that I have listed here. If you have a child that's going to have the limited ability to work or limited ability to earn, it's so important that you have your estate planning in place and you don't leave a mess for them behind. If you leave your kids an inheritance and they have some kind of special needs, it could mess up their health insurance, their disability payments, their ability to qualify for medical benefits. And it's so easy to make sure it's protected. And so sometimes people will say, and I've even heard attorneys say this, oh, well, if you have a child with special needs, we're just going to disinherit them and we'll leave the money to another kid and hopefully they'll take care of them. Oh, that's such a bad idea. That's such a bad idea. And it's so easy. It's not difficult at all from my world, from my perspective, to plan for a child with special needs and making sure that they could still qualify for their medical benefits, they could still qualify for disability, and that we put into the plan that they still get an inheritance, but it's protected so that it doesn't disqualify them from any of the programs that they would otherwise be entitled to. So those are the special considerations that that I have thought through, that just thought that, boy, it would be a real gift to folks to make sure that, all of these things are taken care of, but especially if you fit into one of those categories of special considerations. So if you have questions or you would like further information for us, or you just want to talk about how to get an appointment with us, or if there's, if you're an existing client, we have a program to give a little discount to your kids if you want to. It's currently, it's something that we have currently through the end of January, that if we represented the parents and they want to help the kids get their planning done, you can get a little discount. So if you want to learn about that or anything else, Savannah is going to come back on and she's going to explain what the process is of getting a hold of us and getting those questions answered.
Thanks, Bob. Thanks again for everyone for joining us today too. As Bob mentioned, we do have a really easy way for you to get in touch with our team. In the chat box, I've just put a link. When you click this link, it will take you to a calendar. There you can choose a day and a time when a member of our team can give you a call. During this call, they're just going to ask you a few questions about your situation, your concerns, and then you can ask us questions about our firm, about any changes that you'd like to make if you already have planning. Just really make sure that we're all on the same page, and then we can go from there. So again, it's a really easy link. You just click, choose your day and time, and call. You also can give our office a call if you just decide, I don't want to click a link, I just want to call now. You can give us a call today at 810-694-9000. Again, that's 810-694-9000. Feel free to give us a call and again, ask questions about our firm. We'll ask you a few questions about your situation and possibly schedule an appointment. I will be sending out the replay of today's webinar tomorrow. So if you would like to share that with family, friends, or if you just wanted to rewatch it for yourself, you will be more than welcome to do so. Thanks again for joining today, and we will see you next week. Happy holidays.